Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I want to say thanks to all of our presenting sponsors you see here on our screen. So thrilled because we have Katie Warnick with Staffing Boutique, one of our amazing sponsors. Yes, and Katie does a great job joining us every show. So she's dedicated, committed. If there's a question that comes up during that show, even if it's not dedicated to her, specific genius zone, she's always right there to jump in. So really, really grateful to have you. As always, we like to show a little bit of housekeeping here. We like to remind you that we absolutely observe all compliance. We ask you to do the same. The other big thing I want to share with you is that the show is being recorded and archived, including your questions. So if you have a question for Katie, Julia, or myself during the show, just at the bottom toolbar, you'll see a Q&A, and you can push that button, type your question. We take compliments as well as comments. we're not shy, we'll take it. And again, those are being recorded, and they will be, with the live recording of that up on the show. So Julia Patrick joins me. This is her brainchild, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Julia Patrick is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I am Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And really just so thrilled to have you back, Katie. Always a pleasure to have you join the show, and even better when you are the guest of the show. So Katie with Staffing Boutique, welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here again. You guys are the best.
Well, we love you. I don't know how, I have no clue how we found each other, because you're in New York City, we're in the West, and you're so interesting because your business really revolves around the nonprofit sector in the HR part. And so you're totally speaking our language. And we thought we'd have you back on with 30 million Americans out of work. 30 million.
Yeah.
A big hit to the nonprofit sector. Also people that I think are going to have kind of a Venga Jesus moment, come to Jesus moment, where maybe they're like, I don't want to go back into finance, or I don't want to go back into whatever, and maybe pursue something in the nonprofit sector. I just think there's a lot going on. So we thought we'd have you come back and talk to us about how you make yourself more marketable, whether you're looking for a job, might be looking for a job in the future, I don't know. And so really, really an interesting topic for us. And we're thrilled that you'd come and share with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. I will say this, and it sort of goes into this marketable thing. When quarantine happened back in March, I knew my business was going to tank, basically. And I knew I'm a big, structure person just in my life. I think you have to be when you have your own business, right? Routine is key. I'm a big exercise person. I have been preaching morning movement for a number of years. So I committed myself when quarantine happened to always get up, always do some sort of workout, and then sort of get some sort of normalcy that I can control every day. I had no idea we'd be here, 5 months later. But one of the things that happened was I got an email about this show, and I was like, I did go on a few other webinars, and I was like, wow, this one's really good. And I committed to it. And I think that I have been live with you guys every episode except for like 3, because I had doctor's appointments or something. But I pretty much, I was like 30 minutes, I could commit to this. It will help me stay informed. So those are the 2 things that have been constants: exercise in the morning and you guys, right?
Wow.
So here we are 5 months later, and now I'm talking about how to make yourself marketable. And it's such a good question, right? Like, who are we talking to? Are we talking to people who are still working? Are we talking to people who are now out of work? Right. And I have to be honest, look, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. People who like me really like me. People who don't, because I'm honest. And here we are, we're 5 months in. And if you haven't found some sort of normalcy with this and accepted your current situation, you got to make a change, right? So with that being said, I just feel like, how do you make yourself more marketable? So, okay, what if you are still working right now? You haven't been affected by this. You're at a nonprofit or wherever you are. What are you doing to better yourself? Is this the time? Maybe I don't want to do planned giving. Maybe I don't want to do communications. This is the time to become an expert at something else, right? You have the time. You're not commuting. You're home. I am not a reader. I am not someone who loves education, but I am someone who does like to know a lot about things that interest me. So as I mentioned, I've been in the fitness industry a long time. I often listen to podcasts about fitness industry things. I am staying on those webinars. I am learning what's going on in the fitness industry. But it keeps me aware and it makes me an expert of not only the nonprofit sector, which I'm always working in, but I also have a backup plan, right? I can go work in fitness. I'm staying aware. So, I know that I'm very specific, but I listen to so many different podcasts to keep me in mind, lots of doctors, lots of writers. So those are all things that you should be doing. Be an expert. So one of the things that I did when, quarantine happened was I said to probably 24 of my directors of development, hey, I listen to this show every day. You guys, I said, you might want to check it out. A lot of them wrote to me and are like, wow, thank you so much. That was great. And now they listen all the time. Yeah. But you want to be a resource. So think of yourself that way. Be an expert, be a resource. So know your focus area. So again, like I said, is this the time that maybe you, again, want to transition your skills? Are you a manager? Are you running a development department and thinking to yourself, I am such a bad manager. I am a control freak, right? Now, more than ever, is time for you to sit back and let that go. Work on your management skills. Work on your management style. Why are you a control freak? Start to dive into that. Start to think of what else can I control and maybe give up some control. How do you do that? Figure it out. Listen to podcasts. Read management books. There are so many different ways to really start to work on your soft skills to make you a better person going forward in the future, whether you stay with the same organization or you move on, or you leave nonprofits, or you leave development, or whatever. So those are the one thing I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that we have been asking a lot of our guests, and we hear this from funders, and everybody's kind of talking about it, is to ask one another the question, what are you doing to improve yourself or to change or to navigate? Mm-hmm. And I can imagine if you were in a job interview, that question would probably come up. Yeah. Like it has never come up before.
Right.
So to your advice, to be saying, well, I'm investing in myself, I'm trying to learn a new skill or restructure, I think is genius.
Yeah, and I don't know if I said this on the last show that I was on, but just in terms of, I am starting to slowly see the job postings come back up on Foundation Center on Idealist, which is great. But back in 2008, when the economy crashed back then, we saw a reduction in communications departments in nonprofits. Pretty much got rid of them completely. A whole bunch of communications people were out of work. And then what happened was they kept maybe like one marketing or one communications person on and put them into a development department and then outsourced everything else, right? Well, so now what are we seeing? A lot of communications jobs, a lot of marketing jobs. Everything has to be done online now. So we're seeing a resurgence in the nonprofit sector in those areas. And the reason that I bring this up, are you one of those marketing and communications professionals that got sucked into development? Because now is maybe your time to bring that skill set back. So being on these webinars specifically for those areas, or applying to jobs, or bringing back that creative self, part of your brain that maybe you weren't using because you were always just thinking about fundraising, is another thing too.
Great point. I love that one, Katie. And I also want to throw out one of the big questions I get quite often is from individuals, professionals in the corporate sector that say, I'm ready to shift. I want to work in the nonprofit sector. How do I make that leap? And what I'm hearing you say is, you are marketable in so many ways, and make sure that you know what those look like. I can imagine really, enhancing your LinkedIn profile to highlight that. But as you just said in this example, which I think is perfect in the communications, if you got sucked into fundraising and development, but you really want to go back into the marketing communications realm, if you work for a for-profit, but you're thinking, you know what? I've always wanted to be in the nonprofit. Now's the time to rip the Band-Aid and make that pivot for my own professional career. same thing. What are some of those transferable skill sets? What makes you marketable in the nonprofit sector? In fact, it is such a big question that I've received so often. I ended up recording a response to it so that I could send people, like, here's the YouTube link, here's the blog article that I wrote. But are you seeing some of that as well, Katie? People that are like, hey, I want to get into the nonprofit sector.
I always see that. And it's so funny
Yeah.
that you recorded a response, because I'm so dumb. I didn't. And it's just a conversation that I have all the time.
You should. It's not too late, right? Go ahead and do it.
I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. Yeah, no, it's a conversation I often have. And, it's coming up a lot now, but it's still the same answer. Like, are you sure you want to make the switch? Are you volunteering? Do you know what missions you align with? Like, all of those things. And so many people don't even know how nonprofits work. So I mean, that type of person is at so many different stages on that spectrum. Are you financially ready to make a switch? Like, all of those sorts of things you got to think about for sure. But yeah, it's time to brush off, some different skill sets and look at what the opportunities are out there for you.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit, and let's get down to actually navigating the new job market that has been created from the pandemic. And let's start with the old-fashioned cover letter. Mm-hmm. Even though we're all applying online, what's up with this?
So something that I've always said, and now I've been in this business for 16 years, I don't read a cover letter. I think it's a waste of time. I do. Resumes are huge. I think that they can say exactly what I need to know. Mm-hmm. However, I have clients that request cover letters and they use it as a writing sample. And so, there's kind of two, sides to this. I am a big send your resume, no cover letter. If they request a cover letter, then make a cover letter specific to that organization and mission. Do not send out a standard cover letter. So many times have I gotten cover letters and they don't make it out to the industry that I focus on. I got one on, unsolicited from LinkedIn the other day, and he said, even though I don't have experience working in entertainment, and I'm like, bro, like, I don't do entertainment either. Like, I'm not the right person for you, see ya. And then he wrote me back and he was like, oh, well, I'll work in nonprofits. But you got to think about that, especially when you have time to be looking at a cover letter. If you're going to write a cover letter, it should be specific to the organization. But I would say I'm a no on those unless requested.
So then my next question is, and this is a new one for me, pictures on the resume. I think it's really bizarre, personally. Okay.
No, I'm a hard no. And I've been screaming this for a long time. It's super weird. I do get a lot of pictures on resumes from people that are sending resumes internationally. It seems to be more of a thing in other countries. I would say it's a hard no in the US, unless you're applying for a waitressing job or something like that, or working at a gym or something like that makes more sense. To work at a nonprofit, no. If they really want to see what you look like, they can look on your LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I have a question about that. LinkedIn makes it really easy that you can download a resume from your LinkedIn profile. And even as a consultant, Katie, I will have prospective clients ask me to send a resume, and I'm thinking, no, I don't send you a resume. That's not what I do as a consultant. Yeah. So in that instance, I have utilized the LinkedIn, resume builder or whatever it is. I think it's just a quick link, or, I don't know exactly how to describe it. Maybe you can do better.
I know what you're talking about.
Right. And then it saves it as a PDF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So does
it pull your picture?
I don't think it does. I think it has a big sidebar on the left, but it doesn't pull the picture.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great tool. And that's another thing too. There are so many people out there that, are a little bit more old school. They're 25 years into their careers. Maybe they don't update their LinkedIn. I mean, at this point now, coronavirus, like you have to have your LinkedIn up to date. Now is the time. I know that we talked about that on another show, going through your LinkedIn, getting a headshot. I got professional headshots done for the first time ever 2 weeks ago because I have the time to do it. I'm redoing my website. So, really using this time wisely to do what you need to do, all those things that sort of have fell by the wayside. I went off on a tangent, but you get it.
No.
No pictures on resumes.
Okay, cool.
It's weird.
You brought this up earlier when we were talking, and I kind of want to go back to it a little bit. What about volunteering with the organization that you're interested in working at? It's kind of it's a weird thing because I feel like it's a free trial, and yet, I mean, sometimes you go in and you can work and be successful as a volunteer, and all of a sudden that organization finds the budget to hire you or to hire you faster. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love this. I volunteer. I often tell people who want to transition their careers into the nonprofit sector to volunteer. And I say it's volunteer with 15 different organizations. Just do one-day things. In New York and in New Jersey, we have something like New York Cares and New Jersey Cares, and it's basically the calendar, and it manages the different volunteer opportunities that are coming up. So once you're a volunteer for New York Cares, which I am, I can pick and choose based on my schedule where I want to go. I could make it where I just go on the weekends. So I was actually on their site yesterday, and I was searching Idealist. There are places right now that need in-person volunteers still. So it's something that's actively happening. So the good thing about it that I like is, someone that's coming from corporate for their career in corporate goes to volunteer at maybe a social service. Sometimes it's just not the right fit. If they go and volunteer at Lincoln Center or, something performing arts, it's a really good fit. And I think that it's a time for you as a person, as a volunteer who wants to make a transition, to figure out where do you see yourself fitting in. How they run volunteer events is a good reflection of how the organization operates, right? So I think it's a really good idea to volunteer for sure to get your feet wet in different areas. And then once you find an organization, keep volunteering, networking, or maybe it's a similar organization, similar mission, different organization. Like, that's a really good skill set to build up your resume too.
So guess what, Katie? You now have that recorded. So you can just share this archived and recorded episode. So whenever someone asks you that question, you say, here, take a look at this.
Yeah. Good point.
That's right.
Well, I think it's a good thing that you bring up, Katie, because it is a different sector. I mean, we are businesses in the nonprofit sector. We just work differently. We measure things differently. And it's far more than having a good heart.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a good head. You have to be able to navigate what the environment calls for. And so, yeah, I love that you said that. Given kind of where we are now, and you've given us some great ideas on tools that we should all be using, what are some strategies 5-6 months into this new year?
Yeah. So So my response to this has always been the same. I think I said it, make the job search engines work for you, set your criteria of what you want. So that's I think on the first episode I was on. What I would say the only thing to differentiate right now is the follow-up. How assertive are you being? Who are you following up with? How often? Now, I understand that it's annoying for hiring professionals, but at the same time, I'm speaking to a lot of people who are like, well, I'm laid off. I guess I'll look for a job soon or when things get back to normal. And that's not really the right approach either. What are you doing? You're taking yourself out of the market where you are going to make a living like for 6 months. Like, that's not okay. So, is a phone call needed? No. But if you are sending your resume, to follow up a week later and say, hey, I sent my resume. Did you review it? Is this job filled? And continuing with that until someone gets back to you. And if you are searching specifically for a specific organization, it doesn't hurt to say, wow, it stinks that I didn't get this job, but would you be open to just having a call with me so you know who I am if something else comes up? Follow up is big right now. And then, but at the same time, is your LinkedIn in line? What are you doing on sort of the back end to make yourself hopefully weasel into a position soon, right?
noticing on LinkedIn so many people, and I think this is really cool, and I want to get your take on this. So many people that hear about other jobs that they have absolutely no affiliation with, but within the sector. I think of one of our guests, Jerry Diaz, who's been on several times. He's a consultant. If you follow him, follow along with him on LinkedIn, he is always like, hey, I've heard about, this organization looking for a development director, this person, this group looking for that. I'm wondering what that looks like to you. Do you feel like that's a positive thing, a negative thing?
That's funny that you say that. So I'm a huge networker, and I'm a huge person to stay in touch with people. I have friends that have started their own staffing firms that are technically my competitors here in New York. And, if this was the new year, I probably wouldn't share their jobs. But at the same time, I also want everybody to do well in every business. So I'm sharing my friend's jobs. If he has the jobs, I don't want money. I don't want a referral. I just want people to work. So I am big into that. Like, if you see something that looks interesting for what your network is, yeah, it's great to say, hey, this person's hiring, contact them. I have a girlfriend, she does a little bit of a different model of direct hire search. And basically, long story short, is she placed a job in California, and then the person fell through and she had to quick find someone else. And, we were coming into this, and, just all these other things kind of happened. I said, I'll email blast this to my entire database specifically for this candidate. She was like, wow, you would do that for me, hon? And I'm like, I have nothing else to do right now, and sure enough, I did. I emailed it to my candidates, and I said, I am not working on this job. Contact XYZ person. And so I sort of washed my hands of it, but I helped her with that. I don't want anything for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I am connected to Jerry Diaz, a guest from our show, and I love seeing when he shares those opportunities for the nonprofit sector. I get quite a few as well, Julia, but I'm always amazed at how much is out there. And so when people, going back to what you said, Katie, for people that are waiting for normal to come back, forget it. You've lost it. You are so far down the rabbit hole that I don't think, you particularly may be able to recover if that's who you are. And I've written a couple of articles about nonprofits that are like, we're just going to hit the pause button and wait for things to come back to normal. And I'm like, no, you cannot pause. If you pause, you're sinking. So I would presume it's the same when it comes for job searching, or, maybe even looking to add on a new position. If your organization has downsized and you might want to supplement with an additional position, things like that. So please, if you're watching, don't pause. Don't wait on the sideline. No, you got to get in the game. You've got to be there. You've got to reimagine. You've got to invest in yourself in some way, shape, or form. Katie, you're always so wonderful. I am really big into personal development as well. How can I be a better version? Whether it is with fitness, whether it's with, any other passion that you have. For an extrovert that I have been so surprised at what I've learned about myself during the pandemic. I've learned that I love to be alone. I learned that I really love to read more than I thought. And I know you mentioned that the same. So when employers ask you questions, it is kind of like, how have you spent this time? How have you spent this time during the pandemic?
Yeah. And something else that I wrote down to bring up today too is, if we're talking about people who have been laid off or have furloughed, what are you doing now to make yourself more marketable? Like all those things that I said, yes, those are important, but are you focusing on yourself? Are you listening to podcasts? How's your eating? How's your sleep hygiene? What are you doing to stay sane through this? Because it's going to be so, so important when and if or never things get back to normal, right? You got to stay in the game. Blog posts, everything. You got to be on it right now. It's not okay to just say, oh, I'm just going to watch Tiger King and eat fire Cheetos.
Right.
It's not okay. I don't care. I'm shaming you.
Not okay.
It's not okay.
So we don't have much time left. And I'm going to finish up with this question and get your opinion. How are interviewers, whether they be people like you that are intermediaries or people that are directly from an organization, maybe not even in HR, how are the interview questions changing? Like, what are some of the new things that maybe are being asked?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much been, I think, the same interview questions, but it's funny, like I'm getting weird feedback just about people's mannerisms via Zoom. So like when I coach candidates to go to on interviews, I know that you had that HR person that kind of did the same, but I would say, you know, don't even, if they offer you a glass of water, like don't even take that because you might spill it. And then it's like a whole to do, you know, like don't wear too much perfume, like all of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I'm getting feedback from clients, like just about someone touched their nose ring too much. And, you know, we're a nonprofit and that's cool, but that's weird, you know, just like all of those things. So you really need to be aware of how you're presenting on Zoom. Obviously, you know, you do want to dress professional, look professional, but what are you doing? What's the weirdness? Like you need to start to think about that. But I think that the questions are staying the same. I think it's kind of cool because you can get how the person is in a less formal setting. So I like that, but yeah, it's just a lot of Zooms. Make yourself look professional.
Yeah. You know, we come online every day for the nonprofit show 15 minutes early with our guests, and we always have to coach them a little bit. You know, it might be about lighting, it might be about background, it might be about computer height or whatever. And I'm amazed at, you know, really intelligent, articulate, high level people that might have like a bathroom door open behind them, or it seems like they're oblivious to that background.
Oh yeah.
And it's
I think the big challenge, and Julia, you and I had, you know, the great pleasure of learning this, but it's looking at the camera during the interview, because that's actually eyesight to eyesight, which may not seem normal or natural, but that's always been our biggest coaching moment, you know, and we had to get used to it too, but boy, have our peripherals really, really, you know, gotten better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, you know, Katie, as always, we're so grateful to have you join us. You have been really, really amazing. Before we let you go, I've got a question that's come in from Paula, and it says, how can a person finally get in front of an interviewer? My friend does a great in person, but does not see the real person via phone or even on Zoom. Yeah, how do you get in front of somebody IRL in real life right now?
No, that's not happening. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
I did have one of my clients in Jersey. They're a pretty large organization. They're hiring for a communications person. And it's funny, not to go too long, but I had placed the COO and I had placed the director of development literally starting like March 7th or something. Or no, actually it was after quarantine. Sorry. So they never even met, right? So I have these two people going to this new organization, all remote. And so they had to interview for a communications position, and they met at a park with the candidate. And it was the first time they were meeting, number one, and then they met the candidate.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a good idea to record yourself and do mock interviews and then rewatch it. I mean, because that's brutal. Jarrett and I have to do that, and it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good answer.
But
record yourself in practice.
Yeah, I mean, really, really important. Okay, and then I've got to get off. But Annette, I swear to God, I think you wrote this question for me. It says, she writes, I'm prematurely graying. Should I color my hair? That's a really interesting question. Like, should I make myself look younger? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that if you're someone who always colors your hair, yeah, color your hair, you know? But is this going to be the time that you're going to officially embrace gray? Then do it, you know? There's a lot of people with roots right now.
There's been a lot of women embracing their gray. And
Yeah.
I love it. I you know, I'm like, ooh, I hope I can do that with mine.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know.
Oh my God. Hey.
Well, I know that we're finishing up, but another thing too is start to FaceTime with people. You know, luckily my family's in California. I FaceTime a lot, so I'm really kind of comfortable with this sort of setting. So if you're someone who is just not comfortable with this, get comfortable. Say, you know, try to FaceTime someone you know, and rather than record it, and you get used to sort of where you're looking and all of that stuff.
Practice.
Yeah. Katie, thank you so much for all you bring to our sector. You help so many people. You've helped us. You have no idea how I personally, when I see Katie, hashtag, or ... I see that you're on the show every day. It gives me a lot of confidence that you're supporting us. You have been a marvel. And we are really, I think it's really good for us that we have somebody like you who's stayed in our sector and you haven't gone into aerospace or something like that. Because we need people like you, and it's really important. I'm Julia Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, with my trusted sidekick, Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd. We are so thrilled to have had Katie Warnick back on, talking about how you can make yourself more, I want to say, marketable and manageable within this system. And so there's a lot of change going on, and the fear can be just debilitating. So how you navigate through that, some of Katie's strategies have been really welcomed. And we'll continue on this journey because we have a lot more change, I think, in the employment sector coming along. So Katie at Staffing Boutique, this is how you get a hold of her. We're now streaming on Roku, 39 million homes.
It's amazing.
Famous. You guys are famous.
I think we're a little nutty is what we are. Again, we want to thank our sponsors. Without you, we would not be here. We're so appreciative that you've given us a national platform to continue on. I think we're now over 120 shows in, and we are so, so appreciative. Again, this has been the Nonprofit Show. I hope that you continue on this journey with us. We have another great guest tomorrow. And remember, stay well so you can do well. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks, Katie.
Bye, guys. Always a pleasure.